A lot of spiritual teachers out there encourage you to bypass your personality, to escape where you are now. Maybe they sometimes even give you an experience of life beyond personality for a moment or even for a few hours. But of course, the holiday from your incessant mind talk, your judgments, etc., always ends. This is because the patterns and beliefs behind them have not been addressed. They've been repressed. It really doesn't help you much to hear other people's experience of this, or even to be given a brief taste of it. You just become addicted to all that, and the teacher becomes like a drug dealer giving you your fix. What we're doing here is far more radical, because it dares to address the root of it all. That requires going to places that you've been using these spiritual paths to avoid. That involves feeling the pain that you thought spirituality would save you from. So some people at first might think, what is this? I came here to learn how to wake up. Well, to wake up means to be here now, alive, in full feeling engagement with life. And if what is here now is repressed stuff from your past, then that is inevitably going to show up. Rather than being a sign of failure, it is a sign that this is actually working. So this is not about avoiding anything. This is about facing what you have avoided so that you come back to life and find your own ongoing experience of this in the natural state.
Would you, does the definition or the term spiritual bypassing go along with what you just read? You call that spiritual bypassing, or is that the same thing?
Yeah, as I understand it, yeah. If I think of a bypass as like a way to avoid maybe going through the town center, so it's like avoiding, yeah. It's a strange misnomer that happens in this business, that you go into it to find joy and the promise of peace and freedom from your suffering, and then you can face a lot of shit and it doesn't seem to make sense. But there is a logic to it. That's kind of what I'm saying. And it is to do with what I talk about in the natural state, which is fulfilling engagement with life. So if we have a blind spot from our past, where we have, for no bad reason, but it's just happened, that we have built a concrete bunker and put certain things in, that is a kind of reduction in our ability to feel and enter life fully. And usually behind those places and those blind spots is really where the action is. It's like the doorway in, the portal into where we took a kind of wrong turn and we lost some of that aliveness that this is about. So I've become aware that Gurdjieff used the term the work, I think, and I kind of understand what he means now. Now I just went through all this. I didn't know about that. I didn't know about the work. And it's only almost like in retrospect and in working with some of you that I can see what he meant by that. And I can see what I went through and what that was, that it was, well, he would have called it the work, I guess. And it is addressing those issues. So for me, I've said this before, but it's kind of important. This is a very practical thing. And it's not enough just to listen to stories of what this is and beautifully crafted expressions of what this is. That has its place and that's great, but it's not enough because there has to be an engagement with this. And that's where the real work happens. And that's where the real return to this, that's where you come to a point where you do find that what is being expressed by these people, if they are awake, is your birthright and your natural state too. So that's where I'm kind of coming from with this. I'm conscious always when I talk about this, that it sounds like self-help. And, you know, you cannot get away from the fact that there is a side of this that looks, I mean, we discussed it a bit, but looks like self-help. But that is, it's almost like to get to that field, you've got to go through this field. You can't avoid it. But the difference, and I was talking about this with Colin, I remember, that the personality can use therapy and that whole world to escape as well. And it can be actually very comfortable in going round and round and examining and analyzing. And that's another escape. It can use anything, anything. It's a master to drag you back into your patterns. So this is not what we're talking about. Obviously, this is like, if you got to go through that field to get to that field where the natural state is, you go through it. But you're not mind fucking about it. You're not over dramatizing it. And there is a way to pass through that field. Seeing as I've used that analogy, I'll continue with it. There are almost skills that you need to get under your belt to know how to pass through that field. And part of that is knowing the lay of the land of that field and what happens. So, for example, you'll know that you'll have a rush of energy, like you can do, like you had. And there will also be the kickback. There'll pretty nearly always be a kickback where there's a move forward and then it tries to come back in and you lose sight of it a bit and you think, oh, I'm back where I was. And so that can come up. Despondency can come up. You know, sometimes what has to be faced in that field is heavy. There's no getting away from it. You know, the heaviest thing in your life that you've avoided will be there. And who wants to go there? You have to be mad to want to go there. If you're like most people and you're not into this, who'd want to go there? Don't go there. But if you're into waking up, if you have, for whatever reason, life has put in you that yearning, you don't have the luxury of not facing whatever you've got to face. So that's just the way it is. And if you do have that yearning and it's strong enough that you don't kind of stop along the way and have a kind of stopping off point where you say, yeah, I'm comfortable now. Yeah, I think I won't go any further. So if you don't have that and you do have the yearning to go all the way, you will be given, you will have the wherewithal to do it. And if you don't, you will drop away, and that's fine. That's where you will be. And it's not that one's good and one's bad or one's better or higher. It's just the fact. That's just how it is. If you're programmed in some way by life to get into this and find this, then that's the way it works, you know.
Do you feel, and I think Robert would say this is magical thinking, but I mean, I can look back over the last year and there just were a series of insights, a series of realizations that seem to have led me to here, you know. I guess I just wonder, is that something that you found that it seemed like, I don't know if I'd go so far to say that I was guided, but something, maybe it's just the awareness, choiceless awareness outside of personality that sparks certain insights or things that began what I would say what feels like a little bit of an undoing of the personality that even preceded this, because I felt pretty ready to really see this, and it seems like it has been coming on for a while.
Yeah. When there's this openness and readiness together, it's like, and you're pulling this thread and you're just following it, and one thing does lead to another. You know, what you faced and got a kind of bit of a gap to this week and you went beyond a little bit leads to another. You know, because you've done that, it gives you access to something else that will be pertinent to this. And it can feel like you're being guided, definitely. And I don't think there's any problem with that, you know. Mate, you could put spins on it and say, oh, it's as soon as you start get to a point where you're saying, oh, Krishna's leading me or Jesus is or whoever, that's another thing. But certainly the feeling is of that. I mean, I've definitely had that all the way through. And that trust in it is something that helps you move forward as well. That's one of the things that gets you across that field. There is a trust in it. What is my role in this? You know, I'm asking myself. And there is a place, I think, for a guide who can say, who can nurture and push someone in the right direction, which helps them face it themselves. And I think that's what this role is. Yeah. Which is, I think, a very sacred thing, because if this does start working with you, you're finding the most important thing you could ever find in your life. So what an honor to be part of that. And what a sacred thing that is to happen between two human beings. That's the way I feel about it.
Well, if there isn't a guide, the work will start sounding a lot like your personality. You have to bounce it off of somebody, or your personality will tell you you're doing it right. You're doing the work when you're, you know, it's misleading you. It takes another person.
Yes.
Or like the personality starts leading you the wrong way.
It is very easy to get lost. Definitely. My wife reminded me of something recently, which I thought was so lovely, that, you know, I just talked about the yearning, and if this is implanted in you, you know, it can show very early in your life. And for my wife, it showed in a question when she said she was 5 years old. She was like the earliest philosopher I've ever encountered. And she said, I had this question and I kept thinking, what would happen if there was nothing? So it's like no universe, no me, no universe, not even space, nothing. And it's like, it just blows your mind, right? But that question, to have that at 5 years old, is amazing. Now that didn't come from outside. That was part of her natural experience that just came to her. And that was the beginning of the thread that went through her life. That was her search. And it's very kind of, it's like the spring that became a river, you know. It's like an impossible question, right? It's like a Zen code. And of course, if you're in the wrong company, you are kind of, can even be chastised for having those thoughts and put down and made to feel you're wrong. It's very dangerous because the group personality doesn't want to go there. It doesn't want to think in that way. And so that precious thing that can lead to this understanding can be crushed, because the child has no power at that age, and the child is subject to the guidance of the people around it. So that delicate thing can be crushed. I mean, it doesn't die because it's still in there, but it maybe has to be found again and recovered, and the crap that's fallen on top of it has to be removed. So it has to be honored. This is another thing. We're kind of, by talking to you, we are exposing all the things that can come up in crossing the field. I'm using that. I'm running with that now. Okay. So we all know what I mean by that. Okay. So one of the things that can come up is the resistance, and the tiredness can be as a result of that. Another thing that can come up is you can get very tired because you're kind of from doing this work, because you're facing strong things. And so there can be a natural tiredness that you is all part of it, you know, and you think, oh yeah, because this is tiring, you know, because it's like, it reminds me of, you know, in the space films when they were traveling to Mars and it's God knows how many millions of miles, thousands of miles, and the only way you can do it is to go to sleep and for that period. And it's a bit like that because you're traveling so deep that there's a tiredness that is not like other tiredness. It's for the soul almost, you know, and you've got to have that rest. So the work, so here's another part of crossing the field, requires you to have the ability to accommodate and address that deep tiredness that can come up sometimes. You know, some people are going through a lot of emotions and facing very deep and painful things from their childhood. That is really tiring, really tiring. It's challenging to the whole body mind system. So there has to be an environment where there's kindness to, you know, I'm talking about the word work, and you've got to face things. But the other side, attendant to that, is the need to have that space and that kindness and the rest that will give you the energy to then go ahead. Because facing some of these things is traumatic to the system. You can do it. It's all possible to do it, but it does have a toll on the system. And why wouldn't it? It's strong. It's been buried a long time, you know.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you because this certainly isn't spiritual bypassing, is it?
No.
This is real. This is
Yeah.
you know, this is how it is. You know,
Mm.
it's going through all these things across that field.
Yeah.
And I think it's a reality check, really, that you know there is this to be done. And yeah. Anyway, I just want to say thank you, really.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. I mean, I don't, you know, I don't want to give the impression that this is what put me off against people who'd say, oh, you got to do the work, you know, because I don't want to give the impression like it's that's a trap too, you know, that it's just work and you've got to. I always remember, you know, I used to read Darfree John a bit, and his teacher was very much, who was called Rudy, was very much like that. And it was like a never ending path ahead of work. And I just thought, that's not it, you know?
Mm.
And the truth is, no, that's not it. But there is, the work has to happen to get to the point where that isn't it, where that never ending path of, oh, I've got to face this, I've got to face that, dissolves. So it's a weird kind of two things being true at the same time, you know.
Yeah.
Like somebody said to me this week, but it's just horrible, you know. Is this all I've got to look forward to? You know, is this it? You know, this is not selling things that people want to hear, really. So it's never going to be big, is it? It's not that you just come and sit in satsang and you feel great and you get blissed out. This is not that. But it's beautiful, this, because it's coming around to my opening talk, really. But this is the real deal. This is where you find your own natural experience of this. And that is the greatest thing you can ever get. And if it means you got to face something, if you have that willingness and yearning, you will do it because you want that out, because you know there is a place where it's possible to unhook from all that mind criticism or those emotions that drag you left and right and all over the place. That's the point. There is a place, and I am kind of, you know, guiding you hopefully to that. In the end, that's the end result, and I can't give it to you. I can't make it happen for you. I can't give you Shakti put and open it up in you, but but I'm giving you, I hope, what I've found to be very practical guidance that makes this become a real thing for you in your own experience of it. It's not just you've read my books and you've taken on those concepts. That's just level one, you know. your own experience of it is like the gold, you know. And then you'll read what I've written and thought, ah, that's what he meant. Now I get it in my own way, you know, I get it in my own terms. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate you all coming and being there again. And I